It's Rog, it's Tuesday, and what have we just witnessed? The first Champions League semi-final, first leg, tough night in Anne Hathaway's house. First blood PSG, who won 1-0 at Arsenal's gaff. In really what was an existential clash between the two biggest teams in Europe, never to have become European champions, two young talent-soaked squads. We got Barcelona, Inter Milan tomorrow, United and Spurs and Chelsea and Bodo and Glimt in European action on Thursday. And to discuss it all and take your questions, I'm elated that we're not here alone. It's a joy to break it all down with the king of European football brains, Tibetan Book of the Dead expert, fresh back from the Argentine Pampas. It's raconteur, hair daddy, the one football journalist who looks like he could and probably should be voting in the papal conclave right now, live from Buenos Aires, from The Athletic. It's Mr. James Horncastle.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I love the cardinal power rankings. That is the that is the thing. We should be having a show just about the cardinal power rankings right now. You know, I feel in Buenos Aires as we speak, you know, that I'm well positioned for papal succession. But yes, I suppose we should talk.
You ready if called to serve, Horny? That's so, yeah. But can I just say, I am so jealous of your Argentinian sojourn. You have been on for like a week. I have been salivating like a dog looking at your Instagram, steak by steak, Malbec by Malbec. Give us the highlight.
The highlight would be today. I went to Diego Maradona's house. Obviously, he had lots of houses throughout his life. But when he moved from Villa Fiorito, out on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, to Argentinos Juniors bought him a house, which you can imagine now is called La Casa del Dios, God's house. And it's been kept as, I don't know what your mother does with your kind of bedroom when you were growing up, whether she's kept it as a shrine to Rog, where everything is preserved like it was when you last visited there. It's exactly the same for Maradona. So, there's even like some socks thrown on the ground, thrown on the floor of the bedroom as if you just tossed them aside. God knows how many years ago before leaving Argentinos Juniors to go to Boca Juniors. So magnificent.
He is the kind of guy that would just leave a house and just like not move anything out, just move to a new house, throw other socks on the ground. Just houses are disposable. I did actually, in the days of Tumblr, start a Tumblr where I collected photographs of people's childhood bedrooms, and they were divided into two realities. People's mothers either did keep them as the shrine, untouched for decades, or immediately turned them into their own gym. It was one or the other. I just think ultimately it's quite fascinating. If you're listening, you'll know which you were. You're also just at River Plate Boca, right?
Yeah. In fact, I have a ritual, Rog, which is if I'm at a game and I see a memorable goal, I buy the shirt of the player who scored this. Now,
are you wearing a Franco Mastantuono shirt as we pod?
There you go. I hope you can see that. Yes.
So, if you're following along on YouTube, James has just shown us his bare chest. Ripped off the Franco Mastantuono shirt. You're missing out if you're not watching this on YouTube. Let me tell you. And if you don't know who he is, Google him. Delight in that free kick, which you said, I believe, was the greatest goal you've ever seen with thine own eyes in a stadium.
Yeah, and that's saying something, because I was also in Munich for Lamine Yamal's goal for Spain against France in the Euro semi-finals. But this goal from Mastantuono, if you haven't seen it, go and check it out. There are so many angles, because one of the great things about Argentine stadiums is they have no roofs. So there's no shelter. So if it rains, you get rained on. If it's sunny, you get burnt. But it means you can have these incredible drone shots. So there's a drone over the Monumental, and it captures perfectly this free kick. And the trajectory on it, it felt like it was going over the bar, and then someone must have blown down from from the above on the third tier at the Monumental, and it went under the bar. It's just
exquisite.
incredible.
It was as if 17-year-old Franco Mastantuono had taken lessons directly from James Tarkowski in the art of goal scoring. It was that good. But let's get to the game at hand tonight. This is a Do It Live, which means you, DJ FOPs, can be part of the show. Come and ask us questions about football or life, or James's steak adventures in Argentina. Here's how. Just scan the QR code top left of your screen, take you into a Zoom, where producer Tony will hook you up with us. Come be with us. It's audio only. So like James Horncastle, you don't even have to put a shirt on. Come with whatever you're wearing, friend. And if you can't wait, slap your comment into the chat, which we'll be reading throughout the show. And get the likes in. Click on the little thumbs up at the bottom of the screen. Come and be with us. Chat is already buzzing. Gage Wheeler. Hello, Big Gage. He says 100 men versus one gorilla in real life. Yes. You're talking about James Horncastle's chest. You're talking about Arsenal and PSG. Kaboom says, doesn't mean Jamie Vardy's going to Arsenal, does it? Vardy needs Everton. Yes, and Everton need Jamie Vardy. Lloyd Kaplan says, Murd. I am sorry, LK. I know where you're going with this. The game tonight, second biggest thing, by the way, in world football today, after news that Everton have targeted Richarlison as their first choice forward signing this summer. Harvey Elliott, he's coming for you, you mad bastard. James, let's go back before kickoff. How did you feel? Can you channel your emotions? Because this game was brilliant in and of itself, but contextualize it. It was almost an unbelievable resounding of October's meeting in that big Galt mega group stage. I'm old enough to remember when PSG were crap, fighting for their lives. They lost 2-0 to Arsenal in October. It was never really a contest. The BBC wrote afterwards, PSG will need to progress on this evidence or they will not go deep into this tournament. They actually, to be fair to the BBC, ended up finishing 15th in the massive group stage, scraped into the knockout round where they faced and shocked Liverpool. I interviewed Arne Slot last week and he still, just listened to the interview on our YouTube, still cannot get over the PSG night. I mean, a lot has changed since then. Dembele's become the havoc maker we always dreamed about. The team have clicked as a collective. Kavicha Kvaratskhelia has become the maverick game changer PSG needed. Arsenal, they've spinal tap drummered their starting attackers into pulp. PSG essentially went from boys to men faster than you can harmonise end of the world, James. I mean, how do you understand the mid-season shift from fragile to ferocious? Can you explain it to us?
Well, I honestly think it's down to Dembele being dropped for that Arsenal game back in the winter. And people thought, okay, this is PSG all over again, FC Hollywood, too much drama. They're not going to be able to pull this together. This new project, which is supposedly about not having stars, getting rid of your Neymars, your Mbappes, your Messis. Well, it's not working either. And instead, Dembele, 33 goals this season. Someone who has been so unpredictable throughout his career and yet predictably scores in these games and wins matches for PSG. And we talk about that winter period as well. So it's not only maybe Luis Enrique signaling to Dembele, you have to be more professional, that sort of thing. And he follows Luis Enrique. It's also going and signing Kavicha Kvaratskhelia in the January transfer window. I think the price that they got him for, 70 million, is a complete bargain because I think he could be for PSG what Mo Salah has been for Liverpool.
Whoa, wow, that is some loft. Are you saying he's like PSG's Jack Harrison? Yes, you are. You are making that claim. A lot of people in the chat very excited to see it. Danny Penza says, Horncastle, he's come out of hiding and the hair is vibrant as ever. God, this is what YouTube is made for, to see James Horncastle with a suntan. Mikel Arteta had ordered the Arsenal faithful to, quote, bring your boots. That's a real quote from Arteta. He wanted noise. I've got to shout out the club, who apparently, I think to hype up the crowd, decided they'd do their own tifo. I believe the fans wanted to do a tifo. The club's like, nah, we got this. Did you see the Arsenal tifo, James? Because I don't know how you describe it. I think it's best described as droopy cannon.
Yeah, I think this is always a problem when clubs take over these things. Like,
We
you know, I mean,
got this, lads.
it was so basic. You know, I mean, I always think you see so much more creativity on the continent. In fairness, in the Premier League this year, I think Villa and Forest have kind of really upped their games to the point where you think, actually, yeah, those tifos that they do, you know, would stand up with comparison to what you see on the continent. But Arsenal today, I mean, I think it encapsulated their performance. The droopy cannon.
I was going to say, I was going to say, it was as if they got. If you didn't see it, was as if they got Shodran Mustafi they put him on tifo duty, or probably Nicolas Pepe. If the tifo had just said banter club in enormous letters, it probably would have been less embarrassing. And I don't like to be hyperbolic, but I'm going where you're going. I am, James. I mean, the tifo. I think it demoralised. I think it self-demoralised Arsenal's players. They're running onto the field. They're like fans. Arteta said, bring your boots. The fans are going to go wild. This is our biggest night. And then they just see that impotent, tiny... What is it? The old saying in theatre, never hang a droopy cannon in the first act because it won't go off or something like that. And the opening 4 minutes of Arsenal play, very, very droopy cannon.
Yeah, I mean your adjectives, impotent and droopy. They conjure up an advert that Pele used to do back in the day. But yeah, and also one of those.
It was Chekhov's tifo.
Yeah, and yeah, although Chekhov's pistol, you know, or the swan in Chekhov. The seagull, sorry, in Chekhov, much more devastating thing. That actually, no, the seagull in Chekhov dies. Someone shoots it, and so
Dembele.
I think Dembele shot the Arsenal seagull out of the sky today. But no, I mean, also you just have that when the players came out of the tunnel, you had another. You know, sort of, I'm not going to say state-sponsored, club-sponsored tifo, which said, make it happen. Just again, one of these sort of empty, sort of motivational phrases that you see sort of daubed on training grounds that no one really pays attention to.
Yeah, because the players wouldn't think that. Is that what you're saying? Until they read the tifo, make it happen. They're like, yeah, God, I'd never have thought about it. It's like Joe Hart before games for Manchester City used to pound Vincent Kompany on the back of the head and shout, make the magic happen, David! As if David Silva wouldn't think, yeah, I'm going to go make the magic happen. More goals, he used to shout. More shots, as if, like, oh, God, what a tactic. Yeah, Joe Hart definitely going to be a great coach when he's older. More shots, more magic, more goals. Cool.
This performance was performance from the club in terms of a tifo was a Joe Hart scream at Andrea Pirlo as Andrea Pirlo prepares to take a penalty against them. Yes.
Oh, it's there.
Yeah, no,
too soon.
Still too soon.
And by the way, I love you thinking the club effort. What do you think that creative meeting was like where they decided, yeah, make it happen is the phrase we are going to come up with? What do you think they don't think in their creativity they didn't put on the tifo, James?
Yeah, it's quite ChatGPT actually. You know, like I think that's probably. I'm not going to say that's what's happened here, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, also with Arteta, surely Arteta's preparation. We've seen in the documentary that they made about Arsenal how should I say this? Charmingly creative he was. I mean, that's very diplomatic with his heart. Could they not have just done a replica of the heart that he put on the whiteboard and just droop that down? that would really speak to Arsenal's kind of culture, or a light bulb. You know,
I love or a clock or a pickpocket or musical speakers. At least there'd be some irony in it. I think you've identified the problem with Arsenal's game plan was when they said make it happen, they didn't specify what the it was. And I think the players were confused. Hence, 4 minutes in, they did make it happen. And unfortunately, it was their worst fears. They were so cumbersome. PSG charged forward in typical Luis Enrique style, that Spanish desire to move the ball forward. That 2015 Barcelona, Suarez, Messi, and Neymar fling the ball forward at hyperspace. It was Dembele up the gut where Partey suspended Thomas Partey would and should have been. Ball ended up with Kvaradona, sliced and diced up. Was it Timber? Before almost with contempt, flicking the ball back with the outside of his foot to find out. I imagined Rio Ferdinand just shout, Ballon d'Or, Ballon d'Or, as Dembele, edge of the area, got the ball, whacked it into the ground and into the corner. I think the word is it caroomed. It caroomed into that. It was an emphatic exclamation point of an opening chess move.
Yeah, we don't usually use Karoon outside of football, do we?
Did I just make that word up? Is that what you're telling me? Let me Google it while you're speaking.
No, there are some words that we seem to only use in football. The others escape me at this moment in time, but that is one. But Arsenal, I think when they look at this goal, they will be so disappointed because the space that Dembele finds himself in, because it's almost like an elaborate 1-2 from inside their own half, because Dembele picks up the ball in so much space. I mean, it's almost like he was on like Highbury Fields or something, or London Fields, just looking around thinking, where is the pressure here? Oh, no pressure. I'm just going to go forward. Goes forward, picks out Kvaratskhelia, who, poor Jakub Kiwior, the Polish guy, who, having had 5 minutes of Kvaratskhelia, then had to deal with Desiree Doué later on. It's like very difficult time. But Kvaratskhelia just does what he does, attracts not only Kiwior and Timber, but attracts Declan Rice, who perhaps should have been in that Thomas Partey position as well, should maybe have been around the edge of the penalty area when Dembele gets the ball. And instead, Dembele is free on the ball on the edge of the box as he was on his own half. And I don't even think he has a clean connection with the ball when he takes it. But it's unsavable for Raya because there's so many people in front of him, and it looks like it's going to hit the post true, so it would bounce off, and instead kisses the post and goes in. And
it caroomed. The 25 goals from Dembele all comp since the turn of the year. No player from the top 5 European leagues has managed more. And Arsenal's worst fears in many ways were realised in that second. Felt like, honestly, for the next 10 minutes, it felt like PSG were going to score at every attack. Suddenly felt like, holy crap. Apart from PSG and Real Madrid, Arsenal had beaten just Shakhtar Donetsk, Monaco, Zagreb, and PSV in this tournament. And you were kind of like, oh my God, this flimsy opposition. Now they're playing a big boy. How will they react? We saw Martinelli trying to find the forward gear. Honest truth was, PSG cut through that midfield every opportunity. Ødegaard looked like a very frustrated figure for a lot of this game. Opponents drifting around him at will. Kvaratskhelia. I mean, Kvaradona so well from his Napoli days. I don't know if you've met the gent, but can you give us a blast on him? Because he's so humanly magnificent to watch. And for the first 25 minutes, Timber couldn't live with him.
No. And Kvara, whether it's because Georgian is a very difficult language to learn, even the script, the Georgian script, for most people, they would look at that and find it unintelligible unless they're Georgian. Like when it comes to learning other languages, so Italian or French or English, he's very timid, and he's very kind of low key and calm. You don't get a lot out of him. Like unless you have a Georgian interpreter, you're not going to get the best of Kvaratskhelia in a conversation. But what I love about him is that I always think you see parts of culture in players, and you always think of kind of Georgian dance. I don't know if you've YouTubed any sort of Georgian dance. It's not like Morris dancers that we have in Britain, but in terms of like low stepping, high frequency. Just looks like a lot of fun. You can see that in how he plays, how he's got a lot of strength in his legs, particularly in his calves. He hasn't got Jack Grealish calves, but a lot of strength in there. He can go every which way and what. And that's why I think, Rog, when I said he can be for PSG what Salah is to Liverpool, because watching him in Italy over the last 2.5 years, I've never seen a player come out of nowhere and have the impact that he had straight away since Mo Salah. Okay, Salah did not come out of nowhere. Fiorentina signed him on loan from Chelsea. But Salah's impact in his first few months in Italy was devastating. And that's what Kvaratskhelia reminds me of. And so I love this PSG front line because it is like watching Man on Wire. Do you remember that documentary about the high wire walker, Philippe Petit, who traversed the Twin Towers in like 1974? And you're kind of like that. Any gust of wind, you think they're going to fall over and that sort of thing. But no, these guys, Doué, Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, even Barcola from the bench, they are electric to watch. But, unlike Philippe Petit, these guys have this massive safety net underneath them, which is a midfield with the tactical intelligence and nous of little Vitinha. You've got Fabian Ruiz, again, who is one of these kind of two-footed dribblers, very silky. And then you've got Donnarumma, who in all of these games, Liverpool, Villa, and this one, even though Arsenal were impotent and droopy, makes a great save on Trossard. A great save. So they're kind of an electric, but also quite solid team.
I was surprised in this one. In the second half in particular, I mean, there's a couple of questions I do want to ask you, but Gage Wheeler in the chat says, Kavicha must love himself some lemon pepper wet. Georgia man through and through. I just say go dogs to you, Gage Wheeler. I can imagine Kvaradona in Magic City, but it was fascinating watching Arsenal try and summon up a way to respond. Bukayo Saka, Mars Lewis Skelly sorts of right things, got that press organised finally. Threw almost a net of pressure on PSG for a spell, tried to win that ball back in their opponent's half, tried to pass at pace. It was like watching problem solvers try and break their opponents down. Arsenal's best moments in that first half came off the foot of Saka. He was really electric silk for spells. Having him run at Kvaradona was a we are not worthy matchup. But PSG, I've got to be candid, stayed so relaxed. They didn't panic. They were poised always to sting, confident that they could hurt, that they could maim. After some fine hold-up work by Dembele, ball fed to Desiree Doué, impudent 19-year-old. I think legally you have to use the word impudent when you mention his age. Managed somehow to magic his body into a shape that, I mean, my God, this was like watching an early breakdancing video, drove the ball towards the near post. Raya in that moment. I mean, he didn't just defy physics. I think he defied chemistry and biology too, James. Somehow moved one way, flung his body low. Almost, I mean, that block, that was like a boss.
Yeah, the Raya save was, I would say, one of the only saves he had to make. No, I mean, aside from Dembele scoring, I think that was the other story about the second half, really. PSG didn't really create anything. But Raya kept his team in it. And ultimately, going into that second leg in Paris, that save, you look back on it, and it could be really, really big for Arsenal. But, I mean, you mentioned Doué. Doué is 19. This PSG side, I think, is the youngest in the competition after Barca, I think. But the incredible thing is like their experienced players are like Donnarumma's 26, Hakimi's 26, Kvara's 24, and then you've got all these players like Doué 19, Vitinha 23, João Neves, excellent game tonight. João Neves, I think, did something tonight which shows you why this PSG team is different from the one that had Messi, Suarez, and Neymar, because he makes that excellent stop on Merino, where Arsenal thought they had a penalty in the first half, but no, João Neves wins the ball. And, João Neves is 20. So my overarching point here is that it's a very young team, but a lot of these guys have played loads of Champions League football already. It's a little bit like people watching Succession and seeing Roman, and they're like, "That's Kieran Culkin," and like Roman is the youngest player in the youngest son in the Roy family, and yet Kieran Culkin he was in Home Alone, and you look at this guy and you think, wow, he's a young up and coming actor here, Kieran Culkin. But no, Culkin was in Home Alone with Macaulay all those years ago.
I just had to look up Donnarumma's age because for the same reason, he's been around for so long. He looks 26, like Freddie Adu looked 15. I've got to be candid. He's seen some things, and this game was heavy swords. This was great swords. This was heavy armor. This is what the Germans used to call Zweihander. Miles Lewis Skelly, another young kid, not yet 19, became the youngest Englishman, youngest Premier League player to play in the Champions League semi-final. We had him on our show 2 weeks ago with Declan Rice. I asked him what he does with fear. Declan goes, he doesn't feel any fear. He doesn't. And he played like it too. On the stroke of half-time, slipped in Martinelli in goal. Martinelli tried to give Donnarumma the eyes. I mean, that pass, though, it was genuinely more sexy than Walton Goggins in a Speedo. You can't give Donnarumma the eyes. You just can't. And PSG started the first half quickly. Arsenal tried to start the second in the same style. Set piece. Really PSG's vulnerability. They're not a big team, bar their keeper. That Declan Rice ball floated in. The Arsenal kind of did their free kick thing where they shuffle in like Roman Testudo en masse formation from an offside position. And when the ball was kicked, so many Arsenal players blocking like an offensive NFL line. Took an age for VAR to untangle. Let me ask you this, James. If you are doing a synchronized offside to onside free kick move, the onside part it's pretty bloody important to get right, isn't it?
It is, and I'm glad you mentioned like kind of the NFL defensive offensive line, or whichever one you want to compare it with, because for me, watching Arsenal, particularly this season, where set pieces have become so integral to how many goals they score and whether they edge games or not. Like for me, this is like watching Six Nations rugby. I appreciate that some of your audience will not be watch rugby, but like the Rice ball in and this line of Arsenal players who basically go from offside to onside except one. It's like watching a line out in rugby where the ball goes into touch and you have to throw it back in, and you have to jump up and get it. And Nicholas Hover, so their set piece coach, I think he is. We saw Arsene Wenger come into the game, didn't we? Did you? I don't know how much pre-game you watched, Rog, but he sort of comes in through the car park at the Emirates with his daughter, and the scientist, the Oxbridge educated scientist, and Wenger is French German or grew up on the borderlands of kind of Strasbourg. This is the same as Nicholas Hover. I mean, I think Hover, is essentially the true heir to Wenger here. But what did we see? That Mikel Merino by a knee, a thigh, offside. And I thought Merino was pretty interesting, Rog, because he's obviously played as a striker for the last few months and overperformed as a striker. And tonight was told, you have to be a midfield player again. And it was almost like he had to relearn how to play midfield. It was just like, I don't know how to do this anymore. Like, I thought I was a striker these days. And it must be pretty weird, pretty difficult, sort of, after 2.5 months of playing as a striker, and then being successful at it, and then being like, okay, I have to now play in midfield against one of the best midfields in the world.
Yeah, had it, lost it, God bless. I mean, I've got to say that was an agony for me. It was harder to watch for Arsenal fans, I think, than Bill Belichick on CBS Morning. But their team kept coming. Donnarumma again dropping with like a peregrine falcon. It's like watching a giant creature with incredible agility dropping to smother from, was it Trossard? The game became quite brilliantly, you said it already, it became like the highlights of this game were quite brilliant. last-ditch flying tackles. There were countless, handful of them. One from Saliba that took the breath away. Tackles, the way we watch. I was actually really impressed by PSG in that second half. What you said earlier, James, the way they dropped back, soaked up a quite, I think, ferocious Arsenal attack with focus and dedication. That was hard work. Dembele limped off with muscle knack, which will be interesting to watch for next week. Became a game really about who can suffer more. I think was it PSG? Was it Arsenal? I think it was actually Arsenal fans to some degree. They had to watch their side again create so much positionally, but again, for is it 50th time this season, the cutting edge, the focal point, having only Ethan Nwaneri, who would go on to break Miles Lewis-Skelly's youth record when he did come on, or very old Raheem Sterling to try and sharpen things. What did you see? Was it an Arsenal that couldn't summon a finish, or was it a PSG that wouldn't let them?
So I think there are two things, Rog. I mean, first, to go back to that point I was making about the hard work and the selflessness of this PSG side, where we saw it with João Neves making the block on Mikel Merino. I think we also saw Vitinha, the smallest man on the pitch, dropping into his own penalty area and heading away crosses. I was like, this would never have happened in the PSG of like Marco Verratti, maybe Thiago Motta, Matuidi, players like that. You know, to see that kind of effort from not just the four defenders, but from the midfield players and the wingers, I thought was really important. And then for Arsenal, you know, I don't want to bring up the striker question again, because we're going to be talking about that all summer. So let's park the striker discussion. Do they need a striker? But you have to remember how many players were out injured for Arsenal today. You know, the likes of Gabriel, Calafiori, Kai Havertz. Oh. It meant that their bench read like, I don't know, it's like an English public school. You had like Jack Henry Francis and Henry Setford. It's like a bench from the 19th century.
I wondered if these kids existed or they were just making up names for the lols. We didn't get to see them. There was a lot of double barrels in there. But that late swing of the boot from Martinelli, sending the ball sky high in agony. I agree with you. God, we missed Havertz on this night. I just said that. For PSG, Ramos hit the bar late, a fine run. Stung it, I think, with the toe of his boot, clattered the bar. So you could make the case Arsenal were probably relieved just to return and survive with a 1-0 deficit as they head to that second leg next Wednesday at the Parc des Princes. Advantage PSG 1-0. Thomas Partey will be back. Arsenal can draw strength, I believe. And we're going to get to your calls in one moment, see how you feel from their response to that early concession. But, James, can we get some predictions for that second leg based on what we've just processed together?
Well, I think Arsenal will have to have an early set-piece goal. We didn't see Rice step up for a free kick today. You know, I mean, this is the big story. You know,
he had that one. He had that one that he thrashed from an acute angle. Really wrapped that baby.
But apart from that, I thought PSG were quite good at sort of stopping Arsenal getting as many set pieces as they would have liked. So I think they're going to need an early goal. But I think the fact that they will be chasing that game in Paris, it plays really into the hands of Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and Doué. And even if Dembele is out injured, you know, the thing that surprised me, Rog, today, I was like, when Barcola came on, and Barcola was 1v1 and should have finished the tie there and then, I was like, oh, wow. Barcola is now a bench player for PSG because Kvaratskhelia has been signed. I mean, he was magnificent in the league phase of the Champions League, and you know he now has to basically play out of position because Enrique won't take Kvaratskhelia off. So I think the second leg will play into their hands, and the atmosphere at the Parc des Princes will not be a droopy cannon.
A lot of shirts off. Let's just say a lot of shirts off for the boys. By the way, I'm speaking to Mikel Arteta on Thursday, and one of the questions I do want to ask him is about Declan Rice. Like, Did he expect that? Has he seen those free kicks? Or does he think all of us trapped inside have a secret skill that they have not yet actualized? And we got to see Declan Rice live out his twice within 12 minutes. And I don't know what your secret skill is, listeners, but I'd like to believe that Mikel Arteta is going to tell me it's the latter. Ghibli in the chat says, feels like Arsenal didn't take the risk Aston Villa did, couldn't apply the same kind of pressure. Despite their 2 late chances. Edward Montsami said PSG is through. At home, they will put 3 past David Raya. God forbid. John Lunia Miller with a much more rational take. Oh my effing God. Worst day in my life right now. I think that might be Anne Hathaway's pen name, John Lunia Miller. I am fascinated to see what Arteta does ahead of this second leg. You know, he knows his team have gone into the Bernabeu, into the closed roof Bernabeu and won. Will they draw strength from that? He's talked so much about channeling the weight of history positively, which I'm really fascinated by. Really put it all on his players. I have to pray they can go and do a Villa in the second leg, but win the war as well as a battle. Because this Arsenal team are a team who are defined more than any other by what they are not. And I will say it will be very fulfilling in a season in which we've seen Newcastle win the Carabao, Crystal Palace, please God, win the FA Cup. If Arsenal fans too could feel some kind of happiness, it would just make the world. I'm just into happiness at the moment. It's such a rare currency. God, make it happen, would you, baby? We're going to get to your questions in 1 second. I do need to ask you very quickly first about tomorrow night. Oh, God, Barcelona, Inter Milan. What a spectacular clash. Inter Milan currently not finding the winning or the goals. Very, very easy. Just give us a quick blast. What do we have in store for us? And then we'll take a couple of listener questions.
Well, I think it will be very interesting to see how a smart and savvy Inter team deal with this Barca high press, because I think they would actually quite like to play against this Barca team. But saying that, it's coming off a really bad week for Inter, where they've lost 3 games in a row, twice in the league. So Napoli are slightly out in the distance now at the top of Serie A. And they lost 3-0 to AC Milan in the Coppa Italia, which was really unexpected. So Inter look a little bit banged up, in terms of injuries and that sort of thing. But I have a feeling that after winning everything over the last 4 or 5 years, apart from the Champions League, that's everything that is on these players' minds right now. And I think they are saving themselves for the Champions League. So I think it'll be a PSG Inter final, Rog. That's my prediction.
Oh, you heartless bastard, giving us only half of what we want, James. I will quickly move to questions. You tell us, listeners, what you think the second leg is going to be like. I would love to get your predictions, but a reminder of how this works here on YouTube Live. Scan the QR code, would you, in the top left of your screen, or click on the link in the chat. It's a pinned comment now. It'll take you into a Zoom with our producer, Tony. We'll tell you everything you need to know. Tony's so lovely. Do not worry. You will not appear on screen. And for those of you who don't want to ask a question, smash that like button. Let us start with the mighty Ian. Ian, tell us where you are. Come on up, unmute, and what's your question, baby?
Hello, Raj. Coming to you from the land of 2024 U.S. Open Cup darlings, Indy 11, Indianapolis.
Hello, John Green's. Can you smell John Green's aftershave wafting all over town?
Pretty close. Yeah, I got hints of it around 5 o'clock today.
You just heard him laughing. You just heard that mad bastard laughing. God bless. I love your city. I love your Pacers. We'll say the great TJ, that great Pacer, that great Leeds owner, a very, very happy man, TJ McConnell. But tell us what your question is, Ian, you king.
Yeah, so Clive Tildesley obviously had to, he explained the offside rule right after Mika Marino's goal was ruled out. Would you say that's because of the amount of probably plastic Arsenal supporters that were tuned in tonight?
Did you have the Clive? Were you watching, no doubt, in your native Spanish, Horny?
No, I was actually watching in Italian because I found what was quite interesting about tonight, and we didn't really touch upon it in our chat. So thanks, Ian, for bringing this up. Is how testy the atmosphere was at the Emirates. How, for example, at halftime, there were boos and whistles, which were really aimed at the match officials. And I don't think the match officials really got anything wrong. I thought that maybe the only thing that was harsh was the booking on Trossard. Everything else was fine. The offside, Miguel Marino was correct. Saka being booked for overreacting, I think, was correct. I don't know whether they've been like reading about how Real Madrid basically talk about referees and try and create a siege mentality and all that sort of thing, which feels un-Arsenal. It doesn't really feel like, sort of heart diagrams on a whiteboard and light bulbs and niceness. But it felt very... They were trying to make it febrile in a way that I just don't think is really them. So yeah. Plastic Arsenal fan.
They may have been booing their Tifo designer, who I think I've just realised may have been Clippy from the Microsoft paperclip assistant from the old Office days. I think they were probably booing their Tifo, or at least they were they were confused. They've been told to make it happen. They didn't know what it was. I'm pretty convinced that's the story of the night, James.
Yeah, and also Ian talked about plastic Arsenal fans. But yeah, apparently some Arsenal fans leaving before full time. Which why do you do that on a Champions League semi-final first leg at home? Your team is only 1-0 down. Don't leave early because you want to get the tube, or you want to get the overground back home. Stay. I've been there. You're watching your team. It's fun.
You're trying to make it happen, and you're first to the pies. You're always evaluating. You want to be first to the pies, James. I think it is one of life's deep complications. Ian, you're a beautiful human being. That was an incredible swipe on all of the, let's just say, new and it was definitely a choice by that was a CBS. Speaking to the American audience. God bless. That was a moment, a choice, a moment, it was different in every single regard. Let's bring it up, talking about different in every single regard. The great Christina Stotts. It's been so long. Remind us where you're from, Christina, and what's your question?
Good evening, listeners. This is Christina Stotts from Joplin, Missouri. I am honored to be speaking to Sir James Horncastle. You forgot to mention Rog, since he has been knighted since the last time he has been on. My question is, I know, James, you said that you think it's going to be Inter Milan. I think it's going... Do you think the final is inevitably going to be Barcelona PSG? These two football clubs have been among the top 5 football clubs in world football this season.
What are you asking? Does tiny little outsider Barcelona have a chance, Christina Stotts? Is that what you're asking, James Horncastle?
I do.
James, would you take a knighthood if it was offered to you?
Well, luckily, as Christina very kindly pointed out, I'm a cavaliere now. I'm a cavalier of the Italian Republic. So, I don't want to amass honors. So in that sense, Rog, yes, maybe I would be inclined to basically say thank you, Your Majesty, but the president of Italy has already recognized me for what.
Can I ask you a question? Was that a very moving ceremony when you did become an Italian knight? Did you feel? Because I think I texted you and said, "My God, this is so overwhelming to watch. Like genuinely, to have a nation that you've marvelled at from afar, from tiny Horncastle, looking at it from Hull." And to be honoured by the nation for your services to that. I found it very moving. Did you actually find it moving, or was it like when it's going down? I've always wondered what it's like to get an award from a nation. Not that I will ever get one, but like, were you laughing inside, or were you like, my God, my whole life has culminated in this moment? It's Horncastle-tastic.
It was very moving because it kind of validated everything that I have tried to do, I suppose, and also, I know they're not watching, but the ambassador and his children are both they're all Inter fans. So I'm not saying that because they've honoured me. That is the reason why I'm saying that Inter should be in the final instead of Barcelona, Christina. But I did watch the first leg of Inter's last game with the not at the embassy, but with people from the embassy who are all Inter fans. So in that sense, I am a little bit partial towards Inter progressing instead of Barcelona.
JB in the chat asked you this, and it's great to hear you, Stotzy. God bless to all in Missouri tonight. Great question in the chat. If Inter will go through, as JB thinks they will, who would Inter prefer in the final if they were to have a choice?
I think Arsenal, because Arsenal are, at this moment in time, relatively toothless in attack. They beat Arsenal at San Siro in the league phase and kind of coped pretty easily with everything that Arsenal threw at them. I think PSG are, because of that electric pace that they have and unpredictability in their wingers, and particularly how kind of two-footed and ambidextrous those, ambipedal, I think is the word, ambipedal. You can use your both feet. That would be more challenging for Inter than Arsenal. So yeah. Also because, I mean, we've seen how well Inter can cope with, even Erling Haaland, for example. That kind of centre forward Inter are happy playing against. It's electric wingers that PSG have got that I think would be a real challenge.
How'd you say make it happen on a giant tifo in Italian? God bless. That is the wisdom that we all need to live by. No one's asked me who I think will be in the final. I'm hoping for Arsenal just because I want to sprinkle joy on all our Arsenal fans. Somehow I believe Al Nassr will be instituted in the final. I don't know how it works, but this just seems to be the way football goes. And Ronaldo will have a chance to show Pony Preen once again in the global spotlight. Last question, very quickly, and then I've got a question for you before we go, James. But it's Nadika. Nadika, come on up. Tell us where you are. What's your question for the great Sir James Horncastle?
Hello. I have a question about 1980s Serie A, if that's okay.
That's what we're here for, baby. James and I always just always jonesing about 1980s Serie A. Go for it, baby.
I'm obsessed with this defender, Pietro Richard, but there's not a lot of info about him in English. So my question is, A, does James have any cool stories about him? And B, what would it take to get you, Gab McCarty, and James Richardson to do a Golazzo episode on him?
Okay, Nadika.
Before James answers, Nadika, where are you, and how did you go down this YouTube wormhole? Because you sound younger than Donnarumma, who I just found out is 26. I still don't believe it. Where are you, and how did you get into this deep into calling out questions about a gentleman who played as a centre back on the Italian squad that won the 1982 World Cup?
So I'm in Fargo, North Dakota. So, peak Sampdoria country, I'm guessing. Maradona has some amazing quotes about him. In Ruud Gullit's book, he talks about how Van Basten respected him more than any other defender. And there's a clip of him when he's like 40 years old defending against the Brazilian Ronaldo, who was playing for Inter at the time. And it just looks amazing. And he was like 40 at the time. God, and there's like no clips of his defending when he's young.
His Wikipedia is amazing, James. His nickname was the Tsar because he was the son of a Ukrainian Red Army soldier from Starobilsk. And of course, Wikipedia is never wrong. But James, quick blast on this deep cut. Give the people what they want, baby.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was, as you mentioned, the Tsar because his father, Luka Yanovich, was a prisoner of war who fought for the Red Army during the Second World War. I mean, the great thing about Pietro Richard is he was the quickest player. I think if you ask a lot of people from Serie A in the 1980s who the quickest player in the league was, it wasn't a striker, it wasn't a winger, it was Pietro Richard. And he was unlucky, I suppose, to play at a time when, Franco Baresi was young, Beppe Bergomi was there. You then had Maldini come through, and so many great defenders. Ciro Ferrara, for example. A lot of guys who would ordinarily, like now, be racking up 100 caps for Italy. And instead, because of the generation that they were born in, only played maybe 20 or 30 times. So yeah, just one of the, I would say, underrated all-time greats, really, from Serie A defending. Rog, you asked what would be making happen in Italian, didn't you?
Yes.
And I think they have a much more poetic way of saying this, and you see this quite a lot, which is "fateci sognare," which is "make us dream," make us dream.
God, I've got to tell you, just hearing you say that made me both hungry and I fell in love at the same time when you said those words. I'm going to make you say that before we go. By the way, I do want to say thank you for that question. Vecchimod's dad, according to Wikipedia, which is never wrong, was taken prisoner during the Second World War, escaped from a Nazi concentration camp in northern Italy, fought in a partisan detachment of the Italian resistance, and then settled in northern Italy. How has Tom Hanks not played that man in a movie is the question you're all screaming. And talking about men too close that Hanks should be playing because he only plays epic heroes of our age. We are talking about Italian football. James, let me ask you very quickly about a man who is dominating Serie A this season. And by that, I mean, everyone in America is saying the wrong thing. I meant Scott McTominay, 11 goals, propelling Napoli to the top of the table. Scotsman is having such an impact. He's got Italians wearing kilts. I love the video. I saw it last night of the Napoli announcer after a goal screaming, Scotta! Which I just love that's what they call him, Scotta! And the crowd lose their crap and shout, McTominay! In like an Italian Scottish accent. It is so magnificent, James. How do you explain his transformation from good football player who looked like destined to end up at Sunderland or Everton or one of those places, you know what I mean, in the kind of James Garner-y discard fashion, to an elite slayer, biblical smiter of all comers?
So I think, some people, my English colleagues included, would draw the reductive conclusion that it's because the league isn't as good as the Premier League. I don't think that's the case. I think he has a coach in Antonio Conte who looked at Scott McTominay and said, I know exactly what I need to do with you. I'm going to design a role for you, and you're going to become a goal-scoring midfield player. I think he was already scoring goals for Man United. I think he got 6 last season, and we can plot Man United's worst season in the Premier League history down to losing Scott McTominay. We perhaps did not appreciate that Scott McTominay was the glue holding this broken toy together, Man United. But McTominay, so he's got a coach who understands his role, got the best out of him, just as Conte got the best out of Lukaku when he went to Inter. And then, as our friend Rory Smith, Rory Smith went to see Scott McTominay and gave away his secret, which is San Marzano tomatoes. That's it. San Marzano tomatoes. He said, when he was growing up in Scotland, or even when he was a Man United player and tomatoes were on his plate, they were just these kind of tasteless, watery fruits. But since moving to Naples with San Marzano, you have these tomatoes which benefit from being grown in this kind of volcanic soil.
Vesuvius,
and he is
around Vesuvius.
Yeah, exactly. And he has erupted in Naples. And since Rory did that interview, the guy, Scott McTominay's chef, so there's a personal chef for a lot of the Napoli players. This guy's gone viral. He gave an interview to La Repubblica today, which is like the Wall Street Post, the Washington Post of Italian journalism. And so a coach, tomatoes, and also just really embracing Neapolitan culture, which has its own particular dialect. And they call him Mcfrat, which is like, it's kind of like McBrother, I suppose. Or it's something you would find on a menu at an Italian McDonald's.
I just
there you
find
go.
it genuinely beautiful because there is telling everyone who more than they want to know, but if you're still listening as we're going deep on volcanic fruit and veg, then you are really, you are an incredible human being. I find it really fulfilling. Anyone that's traveled around Scotland knows there is a deep Italian connection, especially in Glasgow. There was a real immigration of Italians to Scotland. They seem to run every single ice cream store that was there. So to see this McFrat, this essentially McBro, is what it would be. To translate it to American, there's something truly, truly beautiful. It's like it's culture, respecting culture, and I adore it. I've also adored this. I've loved listening to you. James Horncastle, you are an incredible raconteur. If I had a vote for Pope, you would probably get it. Thanks to all of you in the chat. You brought so much joy to me, to James, to the world this evening. We've loved being with you. To close, Gustavo Cacayo in the chat says, Inter Milan qualifies. UEFA will find a way to swap them with Inter Miami. By the way, Inter Miami against Al Nassr. That is the Champions League final the world wants. And they'll probably get it in New York in the Club World Cup, which is forthcoming and which no one in America is talking about. It's very upsetting to me, but let me not go off on that track. I want to thank King James. It is amazing to be with you. What are you doing tonight? Your last night in Argentina, James?
Well, I am going to have an asado, so steak, 9 different cuts of steak tonight. I will probably have
just 9. Are you taking it easy?
Just 9. They love these things called mojecas here, which are sweetbreads, and morcilla, which is blood sausage. And I've had too much of that, I think, over the last few 10 days or so. I will have a vermouth.
What's the best steakhouse?
What I love about the best steakhouse, well, I'm hoping it's tonight where I go, which is Fogon Asado. But I went to one a few days ago called Madre Rojas. Fantastic place. Fantastic. If you're in Buenos Aires, check out Madre Rojas.
I want your life, and I do want to go down there with you, but just finish off your vermouth story to close, because I cut you off, and I think the world will be a better place if we hear it.
Yeah, so vermouth, I was already a fan. But like the best thing about coming to Buenos Aires is it's almost like Italian and Spanish culture that would from the 1920s, but frozen and preserved perfectly for 2025. And so they just drink Fernet Branca, Cinzano as well, Secondo Malbec, which is like sort of a red vermouth, which you can find in Italy, but no one drinks it like the Argentines do. And then I'm going to I haven't done this in my time in Argentina. I'm going to Casa de Bogini, as they would say, because all L's are J's in Argentina, confusingly, which is where Carlos Gardel and various people and sort of Argentine rock stars of the present day just go and sort of pick up a guitar unannounced and play. I've had an initiation into Argentine rock music, which I must say, I'm not just saying that because I'm here. Argentine rock music is incredible.
We could have done a whole hour. We could have done a whole hour on this because I'm actually on quite a Brazilian rock music kick, and we could definitely compare notes in a deep and, from my perspective, quite idiotic POV. We will save it for next week, James. It is a joy. I will say, the way you attack life, the way you live life. Follow James Horncastle on Instagram if you want to feel better about your world as he just strides across the Pampas and does the things that ultimately dull old Rog often wishes he could. I'm convinced that James Horncastle should be the next James Bond, people. That is what I'm telling you. Make it happen. Tifo would be unfurled in this moment to land the entire show. We got a stunning interview with a quite brilliant writer and thinker, Brené Brown, coming out tomorrow. Please find it. You'll be a better person for listening. I promise, even though I'm in it. It's beautiful. To more together. Let's not take a second of watching football together for granted, James. It's incredible to be with you, you beautiful man.
Pleasure to be here as always.
I'm off to the UK on Thursday. I'll speak to you next from there. Dear listeners, this is Rog saying big love and courage.